Valentine's Day has been and gone. It's February the 16th, the weekend where chocolates go on sale and the Premier League managers go on the dole. This is Beyond the Whistle. If you've not seen us already, I am your host, Matty Grace, and we break down all of the Premier League action. But it's not just me. Every week I'm joined by the amazing Grace Wild. Hello, Grace.
That might be your best intro yet, just saying.
Ah,
That was top tier.
I spent a total of about 3 minutes working on that.
Incredible. I mean, look, that would take me all day. We're not alone today. We're
We're
not
not alone.
alone.
We're not
My
alone.
dickhead of a brother is here.
Go on, Grace, for the audio listeners,
Thank
introduce our guest.
I'd like to introduce to you the worst sibling, and I think my parents would agree. My tends to be delightful in public brother, Edward, is also on the podcast with us today. Round of applause for Edward.
Yeah, that's a good intro. I like that. That's two good intros followed by each other. I like that. I like Matty's a lot more than yours, Grace. But yeah, that's really good. Yeah. Pleasure. Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Oh, welcome on, mate. I'm going to assume you're a West Ham fan as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There's one thing that Grace and I do agree on. And yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm assuming Grace has told you who I support, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking, what jokes can I come with, but I think the league form does enough for me. So I'm kind of gonna lean on that a little bit. But yeah, I think Grace and I have always had the opinion actually that, the rivalries, but it's actually nice to talk to other people about clubs because I suppose you see Tottenham's form and managers different to will see it. So I always think it's good to have contrast like that. It's really good.
And we can all hate watch Arsenal. It's brilliant.
Yes, absolutely. If there's one thing we do all agree on.
Yeah, that's true. Should we jump straight in, Grace? I'll jump with you first off. Chelsea 2, Leeds 2. Talk us through this game. What did you get to see of it?
Let me just refer to my notes. It was a brilliant game, to be fair, from a Leeds perspective, from a Chelsea game, not Chelsea perspective, not so much. Chelsea were 2-0 up actually. João Pedro got the first goal. It was actually a really, really nice assist from Palmer, looking like he's back in form. And João Pedro kept himself on side very, very nicely. It was 1-0 Chelsea. Then there was a penalty. I think it was a stone wall. Palmer buried that. And then Leeds got themselves back into it. Another penalty, to be fair, and I think it was a penalty. Nemecha buried that one. And then it was 2-2, and it was a defensive nightmare. Okafor made it 2-2. I think it was a great run from him to get the rebound. There is argument also, though, was it handball? Was it a Sanchez foul? It's been quite a controversial one. But let's be honest, I'm potentially missing opportunity of the season at the end of the game. It should have been a Chelsea win, to be fair, and I think Liam Rosignol will probably feel the same way.
Yeah, you say it should be a Chelsea win. I do agree with that, but you've kind of got to question the defence there, aren't you? What did you read into this? Did you get to actually watch the game? Did you see what happened play by play, or have you just watched the highlights?
I've only watched the highlights because I'm afraid I was too nervous for West Ham Man United, which was coming up roughly 40 minutes later.
Amen to that.
So and yeah, completely frazzled. So I didn't see this. I've only seen the highlights. Little insight into my normal life. I've only seen the highlights. So to be honest with you, other than what I would consider a defensive nightmare for the equaliser, I can't say I would be able to comment on Chelsea as a defence overall. Did you see it fully?
No, again, I've seen the highlights, but it felt to me that this was more of a Chelsea threw this away rather than Leeds coming back. I mean, they still got to take the chances, and it was still good to bag them 2 goals, but it just felt more like Chelsea threw this away with their defensive errors.
Yeah, and I think Leeds are the type of team at the moment who are going to pounce on a weakness because they're just energetic. They're just going to batter you in any sign of weakness because that's just Leeds' motto at the moment. And to be fair, if it keeps them up, fair play to them. A great point for Leeds, and I think that shouldn't go. That shouldn't be dismissed because there has to be the intent of getting back into the game for them to actually get back into the game. Otherwise, that would have been a nice, easy ride for Chelsea.
Yeah, it does feel, Edward. It feels like out of out of the teams that are down in the relegation zone, Leeds are the ones with the most fight in them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think Grace and I have obviously spoke about it at length, watching results for different teams. I think if you're a Leeds fan right now, you're sort of going, that's the spirit that's going to keep us in the top flight. Going 2-0 down away from home at Stamford Bridge, that's West Ham fans can't talk at the moment about going 2-0 up at Stamford Bridge. So to be able to come back from 2-0 down, I think just touching on what you both said, I think from a Leeds perspective, that's a golden point. From a Chelsea perspective, that's two huge points missed. There's sort of 46 points with those two extra points. And that puts them obviously above United. So it starts to pile the pressure on from a European perspective. I think for Leeds, it's only good confidence. It's a point one lost, which where they are right now, and the dogfight that as West Ham fans, we find ourselves in. I think for them, points like that, when they look back at the end of the season, will go, yeah, those are the type of points that actually kept us up.
Yeah, spot on. I'll ask this to both of you really. The Palmer miss at the end, I'm assuming you've both seen it. Is that the miss of the season?
Go on, Ed, would you go first?
Yeah, I think. Do you know what? I think in the context of the game, there might be a few misses. Sort of get to the nail biting end of the season, the relegation zone. So maybe uh, the easiest one to miss was that. I suppose if you looked at it at the end of the season, there might be misses that sting a bit more. So I think right now it takes the biscuit, but uh, there's still plenty of time for someone to mess it up worse. But yeah, I think for me right now it's miss of the season.
Yeah, you kind of when it's Palmer,
Yeah,
you
I
kind of
agree. I think it is. Oh,
no,
sorry,
sorry.
carry on.
I was going to say with it being Palmer, you kind of expected the net just to rattle, didn't you? But he just spooned it over
Yeah,
straight over the bar. So I mean, I was quite shocked. But yeah, it's going down with my miss of the season so far.
yeah, yeah, same.
Did you see the look on his face? Because I think he was shocked that he missed it, to be fair.
Yeah, I think did not sit in the goal for like 5 minutes afterwards and just like contemplating
Yeah,
his life.
yeah. So odd from a guy who is usually just robotic and automatic, in the box, in and around the box. Yeah, I think that one's going to sting. Definitely.
Anything else on this game, Grace?
No, it's one of those difficult ones, isn't it? Because no one came out on top. Points were probably rightly shared in the end, given the effort that Leeds had or Leeds put in to get themselves back into the game. You could argue Chelsea should have won it, but I think probably it's a fair result. And midweek it does throw up these type of results. Um, yeah, important from both sides of the table, both ends. Sorry, not sides, ends of the table.
Just out of interest, obviously, we're talking about the midweek games here. The FA Cup is pretty much been and gone, I think, barring one game. Did you get to see the Chelsea Hull City game on Friday night?
I didn't. I'm afraid I was watching the Winter Olympics. I'm so sorry. I'm a terrible football fan.
What about you, Ed?
Yeah, I'm the same. I have a better reason though. I was actually at work. So I yeah, didn't see that one. Do you know what? I think sometimes with the FA Cup the fixtures come so thick and fast sometimes that actually you sort of have a choice of a couple of games, which I think, is the reason we all love it. I'm sure we could go on for loads of reasons why we think replay should still be a thing and so probably a rare miss, but I was actually working. So Grace, you look worse than me on this occasion.
I do. Yeah. I'm assuming you watched it, Matty.
I went to it. I was at the game.
I knew you would be.
Okay. Should we jump into our next game?
No, hang on a minute.
Go on.
And go on.
And
What did you think?
yeah, Chelsea looks really good. I think Hull held their own for majority of the first half. And I think once that first goal went in, it was just always going to be a bit of a confidence killer for City. But yeah, look, there was a couple of players on the pitch that didn't look out of place against the Prem team. But there's a lot of talk around Hull that are sort of fighting for promotion. I think this goes to show they're a long way off yet. I know Chelsea's probably one of the bigger boys against a Brentford maybe or like an Everton. Hull City might nick a win or something like that, but against a top six team, there's just different levels.
Interesting, very interesting for Championship fans potentially listening.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, look, to be fair, Liam Rosenior came. He got a really good reception. Obviously, as you know, former Hull City manager, and he's got a lot of family ties to Hull. It was a really good atmosphere. It's kind of like really a friendly atmosphere, which was weird, really. But yeah, no, look, it was a real good game, and he didn't put out a weak side either, which I was expecting him to just field a load of kids, and he didn't. He showed Hull City a lot of respect. So yeah, no, it was a good game. It was a good game. Very cold though. We'll jump into our next game though. It was Everton 1, Bournemouth 2. Edward, do you want to kick us off with this?
Yeah, I think it's another difficult sort of game to watch almost. It's sort of two comfortable mid-table teams sort of scrapping it out. It's kind of what we're used to watching from two mid-table sides this year. I think from a Bournemouth perspective, I think well, what are they ninth at the moment, eighth, ninth. I think Everton are eighth, aren't they? Bournemouth are ninth after that result. So I think from a Bournemouth perspective, how well they've been doing the last few years, sort of how well things have been going. I think 2-1 is great for them, but I think there's an almost a what if. I know Grace wants to talk about a couple of their signings and how well they're doing and things like that, but I think it's a tough game. It's a typical Premier League game where it could go either way. I know O'Brien got sent off, didn't he? Sort of 70th minute mark, which is sort of a blow from an Everton perspective. But both teams are comfortably safe. I don't think either of them can probably safely say they've got European aspirations right now. I think last year we maybe have been having that conversation about Bournemouth, but sort of after a bit of a fire sale with their sort of best talent. It's a typical mid-table Premier League game. So I think uh, you look at it from a Bournemouth, it's a 50-50 possession type game. It could have been there for both teams. So I think unless you're a fan of either of those, you weren't necessarily going to tune into that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna assume, Grace, that one of your players you want to talk about is it Ryan? Ryan, whatever they're calling him? Ryan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on.
Absolutely. Third week in a row, I'm bringing him up. Really like him. It was a back post header from him. Just to run through the goals, it was a dive penalty to make to give Everton the lead 1-0. Then Ryan, I'm going to call him Ryan because I think it's Ryan. He made it 1-1, a really nice cross, back post header. And then Adley from a free kick made it 2-1 Bournemouth. Actually, a really nice team goal. Then there was the O'Brien red card, which was denial of a goal scoring opportunity. I don't think any of us are going to be complaining about that. Pretty simple red these days. But yes, I want to talk about Ryan because I think he's been so influential in everything Bournemouth have done since they signed him. And to be honest with you, him alone made me nervous for West Ham playing Bournemouth on Saturday because I think he's just dangerous. I think he just has this naivety about the Premier League, and he's just slotted in really nicely. And I think a lot of us have seen players come and go who don't find their feet at all. He's just slotted in, found his feet, and literally just works his ass off. And I appreciate it so much. Got another goal. He's just quality. He's just quality, and I hope it doesn't wear off for Bournemouth because, like Edward said about them selling a lot of players, I almost feel a bit bad for Bournemouth in many ways because they've been in the position to potentially push on, and they haven't because they've sold some really important players. Let's just hope they hang on to this one. Let's just hope he carries on his form and to be such an influence for them.
Yeah, I was just looking up the what his trans. Do you know off the top of your head what his transfer fee was? I mean, I've got it here. I just wanted to know. So
No, I don't think it was very much, was it?
he scored 20. Sorry, one second. Have I got a drinks delivery? Oh, thank you. Go on, bring it in. You're all right. 1 minute. I've got a drinks delivery. Bear with,
Oh
guys.
man.
Thank you. This is very bad podding. I'm sorry, guys, but this is what happens when you started work at 4:30 in the morning. Um,
Yeah.
I will just say it's not. I'm not an alcoholic. That is. Anyway, he's scored 20 goals in 57 games for his club in Brazil. Bournemouth signed him for 24.7 million.
Yeah, that's good.
Madness.
They've got an incredible knack, haven't they? I mean, if they're ever going to list this, shout out to Bournemouth scouting team. I don't know what they're paying them. It should be more. Should be a lot more, actually. I know Grace and I have spoken at length a lot how they have a really uncanny ability to find someone you don't know anything about, and suddenly when they're in Bournemouth for some reason, they've got regens of like Messi and Ronaldo. They have a really uncanny knack at finding great players who just fit the system really well, which I think plenty of teams around them could take such good notes on Bournemouth's recruitment. They've got the system that they've got under Real. That it works well. Buy to fit, and you get the results that you get. I mean, what are they? 6-5 unbeaten, six unbeaten. Probably should know that they
Yeah,
haven't
I've got
lost in
that
at
in notes
least
somewhere. I think
five.
it
I
is
know that.
six. It is six unbeaten, I think, isn't it? I've got it written
Yeah,
down somewhere.
which like Gray said before, from a Bournemouth perspective, what's the aspiration? Is it, they're well clear of the bottom half, really. I think they're a lot better than the teams in the bottom half. You'd like to think after this year, they'll get back to sort of the height we saw them last year from a European perspective. Because I think we'd all agree that we like the teams like that overperforming, which just makes the Premier League so much more fun.
Well, that's what these clubs have done well. The likes of Bournemouth and Brighton and stuff. They've got themselves into the Premier League and they've kept themselves there through steady recruitment and finding these like nugget players that they buy so cheap and they sell. Brighton, you're not buying a player from Brighton for anything
Yeah.
less than 60 million these days because they just find them so cheap and just sell them on for massive profits.
Yeah.
Like you said, yeah, credit to the
Yeah.
scouting team because they're fantastic. Grace, I wanted to ask you a question. Obviously, they've gone 6 games unbeaten now. They did have a bit of a dip before that. Where could they be if it wasn't for this dip? Do you reckon they could be pushing for if not a Champions League spot, they'd definitely be pushing for Europe, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's the problem with stringing a few games together that knock your confidence is it does have a massive impact in your overall table position. And I think it's a nice problem for Bournemouth to have because there was a time in the league where, during the season that I was a bit worried for them because they did look poor and they lost Semenyo as well, which didn't help with their attacking force. And I was a bit worried about them. I did think, might they find themselves in this absolute car crash at the bottom of the table where a lot of teams are involved. But no, they seem to have picked up form. It makes me very scared to play them on Saturday because we should be looking for 3 points against them on Saturday, but that's going to be a tough ask given their form.
Yeah.
Fair play to Bournemouth, I say.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm just looking at it. They went 11 games without a win until Dr. Tottenham gave them a bit of confidence. And then they've turned it around. So, yeah, I mean, you've absolute credit to but this is a quick yes or no from both of you, really. Will Areola still be the Bournemouth manager next season?
Ooh.
I'm going to say
Yeah, I want to say yes. I think it's, why would you want to leave the project? I think from his perspective, is he ready for the jump? I think we'd probably all say yeah for a bigger club. I don't want to offend any Bournemouth fans, but there is bigger teams than Bournemouth, and but then it's kind of like the project they've built, the team that they've got. You know, it really is a team full of sort of 7, 8 out of 10 players who are all playing under one collective goal. There's no from a West Ham perspective, we spoke about it loads, haven't we, Grace? That players don't buy into the system. It then creates a disjointed atmosphere for the rest of the squad. Whereas I don't think you can look, and I've got the Bournemouth team right in front of me now. I don't think you can look at any of those players. Maybe they'd argue Evan Nielsen because he's the striker, so he's sort of allowed to do what he wants in quotation marks. But you can't really look at that team and go, no one's buying into that. That's a team rather than 11 individuals, which I think makes them, potentially European quality, hopefully European quality over the next couple of seasons.
yeah, and can
Yeah.
I just add that it's the grass isn't always greener. We see this so often. Of Chelsea, the decision to get rid of Maresca wasn't necessarily like, bad result. It wasn't. It played its part, of course it did, but the relationship between the board and the manager seems to be a really big problem at the moment. And Bournemouth, they've got it. They've got it nice. Iriola gets decent players in. He makes it work, and it's a nice dynamic at the moment. The grass is not always greener. He makes the move to Tottenham, for example, and we know what sort of a toxic of relationship there is within the Tottenham board. Do you want to be a part of that? Is it easier to just stay and, like Edward said, commit to the sort of challenge of getting Bournemouth
Yeah.
into Europe?
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. Just briefly, want to touch on Everton as well, just before we do move on. What do you think to Everton's season, Grace? Because it is very 50-50. I've said this a long time. They're in the middle of the table because they've won some and they've lost some. It's just so hard to sort of weigh up Everton's season, really.
Yeah, Everton are a tough one because they're a decent side on their day, but you don't always get decent Everton, and they tend to switch it on and switch it off, and sometimes that can happen within a match. I mean, this for example, in the first half, they had lots of opportunities to go 2-3 nil up after that Ndiaye penalty, and they didn't, and they paid the price for that. And I think, to be fair, from a Moyes perspective, I think that's something Edward and I are used to in many ways from his West Ham days. That can sometimes be the concern, is that they don't necessarily kill teams off, and that has probably affected their consistency. I don't look at Everton as a game and feel particularly scared. And I know that that sounds a bit odd, but there are certain teams that you go, we're not getting anything from them because they're too difficult. And I would actually put Leeds in that bracket at the moment. I don't want to play Leeds at the moment. I don't want to. Everton, you know, we've got them in a few weeks. Am I going to be terrified? Am I going to expect 3 points? I'm probably going to say we've got to go for 3 points. And that's just sums up their season with their lack of consistency, because they could come to us and batter us 4-0, or they could. It's really a tough one with Everton at the moment.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Should we jump into Tottenham 1, Newcastle 2? Oh, I can see you
Oh,
smiling.
Matty, take it away.
I can see you smiling there.
Oh,
Well, look, the game was overshadowed. Obviously, the news has come out. If you've not heard it by now, you must have been living under a rock. Thomas Frank has been sacked by Tottenham, and in replace for him in interim is Igor Tudor. I think that's right, isn't it? That's how you say it, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Igor Tudor. Yeah, look, this was another pretty poor display from Tottenham. I think the players had kind of given up with Frank. They didn't want to play for him. He had to go after that Newcastle game, especially with the 12 days off that they've got now between the Newcastle game and the next fixture, which is against Arsenal. So good luck, Tudor. Yeah, he needed to go. I think it was the right time. If he didn't sack him during this period, then I think he was going to hold out for Frank for the rest of the season. I think it's pretty poor that I think Vinay Venkatesham, who's calling the shots at Tottenham, and Johan Lang actually wanted Frank to stay with Tottenham, and it was the Lewis family that stepped in to say, I think it's time we call it a day. But the worrying thing is, Grace, is that Newcastle weren't that good.
And this, when I was doing my predictions, this was the thing that was in my head, is that Tottenham are poor at home, Newcastle are poor away. So this was going to be a really interesting one. Um, yeah, they weren't that great. They took a couple of opportunities. Try and think back to their goals. Uh, they just exploited a poor defence. I mean, the Tior, I do want to mention Tior because he is scoring a good few goals at the moment. He's an aerial threat for Newcastle. It was well saved, to be fair, and then the rebound went in. But the Ramsey goal, it was just too easy. Gordon just found that too easy to weave through, pass it through to Jacob Ramsey. Ramsey slots it home. I think it just sums up Tottenham at the moment. And yeah, I think you're right. I think it had to happen. I can't imagine them keeping a hold of Frank until the end of the season. To be honest, I think they kept hold of him for too long.
Oh, but yeah, way too long. I think about 4 months is too long.
Not long enough.
Yeah, well, yeah, you could argue that. Edward, have you seen anything of this Tudor? Do you know anything about him?
No, not too much. I'd be lying if I came on here and said I knew loads about him. I'm pretty sure I've seen, having read sort of the minimal that I have, that his record around the world is not that great. A bit of an interesting appointment, really, at a time where I think Tottenham desperately needs stability. Desperately needs some sort of identity. And of course, you're the Tottenham fan, so tell me if I'm out of line, but. I think it's a gamble. It's a huge gamble. It's one of those ones. If it pays off, they'll look like geniuses. If it all goes wrong, they'll say, "Well, we can just rebuild. It was never meant to happen." I still don't think you'll go down. I know the results look like that, but I is is bad enough on paper to go down compared to what's sort of West Ham, sort of leads those type of teams in and around them. But yeah, I think it's brave. That's what I would have at the moment.
Yeah, and you say like if it goes wrong, we can rebuild. But like you said there, you think that we might not. The possibility of us going down is a real threat, and it's
Yeah.
sort of I find it really hard to talk about like Tottenham going
Yeah.
down because no one would expect it really.
Yeah,
Um,
I think Arsenal fans, West Ham, all the London clubs will, it's. I'd be lying if it isn't funny in a way because obviously that team is far too good to be in that neck of the woods regarding the table. I think it's hard as well because the 4-3-3, it sort of was a 4-3-3, wasn't it, that Frank was playing that whole time. They'd go a goal down and sort of collapse into a low block, sort of 5-4-1 with one of the midfielders dropping in. On paper, that sounds great with the team you've got, the bodies you've got in midfield. What is it? Sa, Basuma, and Gallagher. If you said that and ignored the form, and we were totally talking on paper, that team, that balance should work. So it's hard to think, is it trickled down from the top that's toxic? Some would argue, is it the fact that Frank wasn't ready for the step up? I would probably say he was ready for a step up in that regard. So it's difficult. I think it's a really tough time to be a Tottenham fan right now because I think it doesn't help, does it? Because there's a lot of guys get a lot of stick about Spursy and being Spursy, but it's hard when you think you just won a European trophy. Granted, it's not the best one, but it's the second best one. You get rid of the guy who got you that trophy, and the league form did dip. But were we going to look back at that as the pivot point where it all really went wrong? You were sort of skating on thin ice. Is that where it went wrong? I know Grace and I spoke at length for a long time whether Ange was the right man for the job, but it seems no one can do any better at the moment, which begs the question, what to tackle first.
I mean, I could get into like a full hour-length podcast on Tottenham and everything going wrong at the club at the minute, especially with Ange, because I was a big fan of Ange, and it's easy for me to sit here now and say that I would have given him season three, and 100% I would have done. It's easy to
Yeah.
say that now, but I did like Ange. I loved him as a man.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, the league form was questionable under Ange as well, but at least like I don't know if either of you've seen him on the overlap. Again, I could deep dive into that interview,
Mm.
but like he said, he already knew he was secure from relegation. It wasn't going to get relegated, where we don't know that this season. So you can say, yes, the
Yeah.
league form was just as bad last season, but we was good enough to not go down. This season, we're not good enough to not go
Yeah.
down. So it's hard. And
Yeah.
I want to ask you this.
And
Uh,
from a
sorry, mate, I just wanted to
oh no,
ask you.
go on, go on, go on.
I just wanted to ask you a question because me and Grace have spoke about this, and I'll come back to you in a sec, Grace. But I've mentioned this to Grace before about Thomas Frank. Is there a question, and I think this will get answered in the next club that he goes to, is there a question mark over Frank where was he holding Brentford back a little bit in terms of he obviously under like Brentford were always happy just staying up in the Premier League. And I think
Yeah.
Frank was sort of happy with that as well, just to survive. And now obviously Frank's left, and you've seen Brentford skyrocket pushing for Europe, and you've seen
Yeah.
what he's done with Tottenham. Is there a question there to be asked?
I think 6 months ago that answer was like no. Like anybody, the team was in a really good spot. I think watching him implode at Tottenham opens the door to that being the possibility. I think it's always easy to look at the teams on paper, and I think there's an element of Frank's. If you're a Brentford player looking at that and it's Frank's gone for a bigger project, does the Brentford squad, the ownership, does the whole environment go, right now we've got a bit of a chip on our shoulder to prove him wrong that we never actually needed him. We've got the team, we've got what we need. It just needs sort of a finishing touch to it. And unfortunately for Thomas Frank, you've got a Brentford team who are seventh, and Brentford fans might come for me, but that is overachieving for Brentford. We'd all probably agree that. Great that they're there. I think it's good for the league, but you would never think they're a top six team. They're almost knocking on the door. So unfortunately, I think it does. I think it opens the question as, is he on fraud watch a little bit? You know, was it's kind of like the Brighton concept, you know, can you like Graham Potter with West Ham? Can you go to a club that's well run with a good strategy and really good scouting networks, look good, go to something that's a bit higher, you know, higher stakes, more involvement, look bad, and then everybody says, hang on a second, it was just the system. So I think it's like Frank to Tottenham is almost like the Potter to Chelsea argument with Brighton. So I think yeah, I think he's on thin ice at the moment in terms of his sort of credibility.
Yeah, especially with the squad that Brentford have got now compared to what they had under Frank with Mbummo and Visser and Tony and the likes of that. I think there's a
Yeah,
big question there.
absolutely.
And especially a lot of people, I don't know if they've heard this when Frank was employed by Tottenham, he'd already been interviewed by Man United and Chelsea, and they both rejected him. So what have they
Yeah,
seen that Tottenham haven't? That's another question. But
yeah.
look, he's been sat now at the end of the day. We could go on this like forever. But Grace, give us your thoughts on the appointment of Tudor.
Um, I think it's risky. I mean, I texted you afterwards and said happy, and you pretty much came back and said no, it's risky. And I totally agree. I think I heard something like in his 12 years of management, he's managed 11 clubs, or I might have gotten them the wrong way round. And the problem is with this situation is he has a get out of jail free card. He can walk in, not do anything, you get relegated, walk out the door and say the damage was done. And I think that's a scary thing. That's a really scary thing because he's got no Premier League experience. He's got, like you said, he's got no relegation experience as well. I mean, that's huge. Um, the teams around us, I mean, I know Forest have just sacked Deitch, which we'll get onto. But like Nuno, for example, the teams around you guys, Nuno has relegation drop experience. You know, he's got that grit, he's got that determination to potentially get out of it. Does Tudor have the grit and determination? I think it's a big risk, really big risk. Um, it could work out perfectly. It could be that that team wasn't performing because Frank lost the dressing room, and if it's as simple as that, then they'll go on play for a new manager and hopefully get some points from a Tottenham perspective. But for me, I think the problems are deeper than that. I think organisationally, I mean, just to bring up one of the goals from that game, the Gordon crossover to Ramsey, the Ramsey finish. For me, again, I've said it so many times this season on this podcast that there is just a gap in between the defensive midfield, and I guarantee that Saar could have done more in that situation. Saar could have done more for that goal. And I think that is something deep rooted. That is something that really needs clearing up and needs clearing up now because that is an obvious weakness for Tottenham. And every team who play them will look at that weakness. Um, yeah, I think it's a massive risk to sum it up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
no
to
comment.
jump in as well, Matty. I don't want to add insult to injury here because I appreciate this is probably not the most fun topic for you. But I've just been having a look sort of at Igor Tudor's sort of managerial history, and uh, it seems to me that the most common formation that he plays in across all his teams, and that includes Juventus, Lazio, Marseille, and Hellas Verona as his last four, was sort of a 3-4-2-1. I can see the pain in your eyes with that team being played. You know, I think just to touch on what Gray said, you know, I think we see it at West Ham a lot, but you look at that Tottenham team and you think, yeah, like I said earlier, on paper it's great, but do my eyebrows now need to be raised a bit at players that we would say are, you know, good, maybe not world class, but you know, the Romeros of this world, the Van der Vens, you know, in the team. You've got two really good centre halves that look like they've never played a minute of football with each other ever. Every time they get on the, you know, I think with Frank and the system they had, there's obviously some confusion in there. Dropping, I mean, from what I saw, it looked like a 4-3-3 that drops into a low block that then explodes out once they're in possession. But if you haven't got Sarr or Gallagher or Basuma pulling their weight at all for half an hour of a game, like Gray said, it just drifts away from you because someone somewhere in a system like that just isn't doing their job. So it's tough, isn't it? It's going to be a real nail-biting end to the year, which is good. It's good for the league. So
Yeah, he's not good. He's definitely not good. I don't want to. I don't want to try and spend too much more on this because I mean I could go on for days about Tottenham, but I will just say, Grace, when I text you, yeah, I do think it is a big risk. But ultimately, who else was we going to get in, especially as an interim? Like you look at De Zerbi, people were shouting for Harry Redknapp. I mean, come on, the bloke's 74. Like if he's still got it in fair play. But let's also bear in mind he did spend like 3 weeks in the jungle eating kangaroo cock. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like we're already a joke of a club as it is. We don't need that being thrown there. Um,
That's quote of the podcast. That is.
Yeah, I was not expecting that to come up.
but he did. Do you know what I mean? Could you imagine the
Yeah,
chance when we rock up
yeah,
to people's stadiums? I mean, look, I love Harry Redknapp, and yeah, it would be good to see Redknapp and Defoe, like even Defoe on the touchline and stuff like that. But that's a nostalgia hit, and I don't think we need a nostalgia hit. We need someone to get us out of where the situation that we're in. One thing I will say is, having spoke to like other Tottenham fans and looking at his record and stuff, what he is known for is coming in and giving a boost to squads, and he does tend to win. Like the first few games that he does play and stuff because he gives the team a lift. I don't think
yeah.
he'll take the shit from the players like Romero and stuff like that. One thing I think that I wanted to I can't remember what it was that you said now, Edward, but I wanted to pick up on something about the players. Uh, I noticed when uh, Postecoglou left, there was about 25 different players that came out in support for Ange to say like thank you for everything you've done, like goodbye. There was two players that came out for Frank, and I think that is a big statement in how the players felt about Frank. I think we could all tell there was a big disconnect between the players and
Yeah.
Frank anyway, but I think that really does highlight it. And I think one of them was Porra, who by all accounts is a massive teacher's pet anyway. But he seems to be up the arse of every manager that we have, and we've had a lot, so he needs to really brush his teeth. But the rest of it is just a bit of a, you know what I mean? It's hard. It's so hard to speak about this club, but look, we need a boost, and I think that's what he's going to give us. And I
Yeah,
think someone's worked
absolutely.
out. Look, we need to win about 4 or 5 games to be safe, and I think he can. He's got that in him. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, look, let's move on because I can speak about this for days. West Ham won, Man United won. He's not getting his hair cut, is he, Grace? Come on, talk to me because I tuned in
He's,
for this.
he's not, and I knew he wouldn't get his hair cut. I was literally, I felt it in my veins. It was pulsating through me. I was like, this kid is not getting his hair cut. Um, Good match actually, and I am going to hand over to Edward to explain this one because I think he's the guest. I feel like he's a West Ham fan as well. Go on, Edward.
Well, I just think, first of all, I just want to say about 6 weeks ago, and Grace can back me up on this. Did I or did I not say to you, Grace, in our kitchen that once Crescencio Somerville scores that first goal, the floodgates open. The
Yeah,
confidence is back. We'll have the player that we thought. Goal goes in against QPR. I look at Grace and raise an eyebrow and say, "Here we go." And here we are, 7 weeks later. Well, 6 weeks later. I said it just before the QPR, long before the QPR game, didn't I, Grace? So I don't know how many weeks we're talking, but I think from a West Ham perspective, I could go on forever. So a Man United perspective is easier. A team that was really, I mean, Grace and I were nervous, really nervous. It's a team that seems rejuvenated under Michael Carrick. It's a, club legend. I think that helps. We're just talking about Tottenham needing some rejuvenation. A lot of stalemate with Amarim, I think, caused a lot of drift. People didn't really know what they were doing. Carrick's come in and steadied the ship. I mean, when you look at the stats for the game as a whole, it looks like they battered us. More possession, more forward passes. We committed far more fouls. But had you watched the game, the eye test, we were brilliant. West Ham was the best West Ham I've seen in weeks. I mean, we were at the Sunderland game, weren't we, Grace? And then I thought that was the best. But I think it was a real spirited performance. 11 guys came onto the pitch in a West Ham shirt, and each one of them knew exactly what they were doing. I think from the top, her man keeping profile that we were missing, I think, pull me up if I'm wrong, Grace. Um, I think we were coming into the game sort of second hand anyway, but without Todibo, obviously suspended from a stupid red at Chelsea. But and you come in and we're actually starting to see a real good groove now with Mavropanos. I think he'd been a little inconsistent. So coming into the game, it was like the back line seemed settled, didn't it, Grace? I think you would agree that West Ham just played the way that I want to watch West Ham play football. Go after the ball, play hard, leave nothing there for 90 minutes. It doesn't matter about the result in a way. Just play what we want to see. And I think, Hermansen was great. Wan-Bissaka, obviously, with a bit of a chip on his shoulder. You let me go. We like to think he plays well against United. Um, the midfield was incredible. I could spend 24 hours of the day talking about how good Mateus Fernandes is. Like seriously, my firstborn boy or girl, I think, will be called Mateus because he is just phenomenally good at 20. What is he? 21, 22. That man ran the show. He's behind the ball when we need him to be. He's making runs. He can ping a ball 1 yard, 40 yards. It doesn't matter. He's the total do everything player that we were missing. So I think I'm just really pleased that we're starting to get a tune out of the squad now. The Souček goal was exactly what we've always wanted from West Ham. Jared Bone takes the ball out wide. There's options in the box, beats the first man, goal. And it's always Souček. We come back to this every time. It is always Thomas Souček. So I'm just really happy the game went the way. We conceded that last minute equaliser to Sesko. We're all going to sit here and go, oh, that's annoying. Damn good finish. Nothing you can do about that. Hermansen could have had telescopic arms and he was not going to get to that ball, which you don't want to feel hard done by, do you, Grace? But it's hard to not hard done by. I think we're the better team for 90 minutes. Absolutely. Case closed.
Yeah, Grace, I'm gonna because I had one eye on this, but I think there was a bit of an overlap between the Tottenham game and the Man United game on this, so I was focused on the Tottenham. I had an eye on the Man United game because I was just interested if he got his haircut or not, to be honest. But I'm going to hand this over to you. I did want to ask though. I'm assuming you'll have listened to the commentary as well, and I picked up on how much the commentary is very much in favour of Man United at the minute, especially during that Tottenham game. Was it similar during this West Ham game, or was it a bit more 50-50?
Do you know what? It was interesting because it was in the first half, they were really bigging up Man United. It was almost right, we're ready for another brilliant Man United performance. But as West Ham grew into the game, and then, we took the lead early on in the second half, they were really complimentary of West Ham. And to be fair, in the end, it was quite 50-50. But I can understand that the sort of immediate position they were in was to be up the arse of Man United. But that's generally the media. They either are up their arse or absolutely loathe them. So, I guess you win some, you lose some. I just want to say, Disassi, I think, and Edward can agree with me here,
Just about to
he
say,
was
yeah, I
one
was
of those
just about to
players
say the
that
same
we
thing.
needed a defender. We desperately needed one. I don't think he'd played football for about 5 months or starting 11 football 5 months or something like that. He's been a unit. He has been an absolute unit, and he's paired really nicely with Mavropanos. And I just really like him. Really like him. No nonsense. Just, I mean, you could argue if you're being really nitpicky about that Sesko equaliser, which I am going to say is delightful because it was delightful.
There it is.
Um, there it is, my first delightful. And I think
Delightful's
no, it was
debatable.
delightful. It was
Lucky.
lovely.
We could all throw our foot at it.
Oh, nah, I loved that. Loved that. You
There's some Man United fan typing away right now.
Yeah. Um, you could argue that Sassy maybe could have been slightly closer, really nitpicking. I just really like him, and I think he looked gutted when that goal went in. He looked absolutely gutted, and that was something for me. I want to see that. I
Yeah.
want to see my defender gutted when they concede, because I think we did deserve the 3 points in many ways. I mean, I think Man United fans would argue that they had great opportunities. They had the Casemiro disallowed goal, which was very obviously offside. They had lots of opportunities. Um, but I think we just tried our hardest, and that's all you can ask for. And when it comes to a relegation battle, and you won't be aware of this, Matty, because you're not in it very often. But when it comes to a relegation battle, you tend to look at your fixtures and you say, okay, we need to get 3 points there. We need to get 3 points there. And you sort of add up the 3 points you should get till the end of the season. Anything else is a bonus. Man United, that point was a bonus. You never know how important that point is going to be. And yes, we're let down that it's not 3 points, especially given the other midweek results with people around us losing. That would have been huge, us getting 3 points. But we can't be too upset. It was a brilliant performance. We're still being let down by crosses into the box. We still struggle with those crosses into the box. That's something we definitely still need to address. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with the display from West Ham on Tuesday night.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally no point in me throwing anything else in there because my input compared to you two is going to be insurmountable. So what's the point? Edward, you got anything else to add?
Oh, do you know what? I was just gonna, try and be a bit bipartisan and sort of touch on Man United as well because I think it's only fair.
Nah, fuck them.
I think it's actually nice to see Man United playing football again. Some actual semi-decent football. I think we're all pleased that Kobbie Mainoo's back in that team. As England fans, we were all going, is Kobbie Mainoo going to become a what if type player? What? And I think you saw him under Amorim, the brief stints he made under Amorim, and he looked like a totally different player. So I think it's actually really nice to see him playing better. I'm not going to say they're playing the best football in the world at the moment. They're not, but it's nice to see a bit of balance in a Man United team. I still have my questions about Martinez. I think Maguire's, I don't know why they ever benched him ever. I think he's exactly what they needed all the time. But Martinez, I've always, been a bit 50-50 on. But I think Cunha and Mbeumo, they get the ball out wide really well. I think the front three, if you could, well, front four, if you're going to count Diallo, Fernandez, Cunha, and Mbeumo. Um, I think they're starting to, there's a bit of synergy starting to appear there. I think, we all think Mbeumo's a great, we all think Cunha's a great player. We all think Fernandez is good. Well, I'm not going to touch on that necessarily, but I think for them, they're now getting the best out of an aged Casemiro. We all know he's a little bit past his sell by date in terms of prime Casemiro, the ones that we remember at Real Madrid winning Champions League. But I think the squad that Carrick's got allows Casemiro to play his own game a little bit more. He's not actually having to check over his shoulder too much at whatever the mess Amorim had left behind him. So I think you see a better Casemiro. It's nice to see a Luke Shaw. We all remember the Euros and Luke Shaw. We were all in love with that man for about 35 minutes in that game. So I think it's good. I think it's nice for United. It must be nice for United fans now to see a little bit of consistency, which they've lacked for God knows how long. We must be 2 or 3 years deep into that lack of consistency. So hopefully, it continues for them. Just so it's not so West Ham centric.
No, no, you're definitely right. Like I know I keep saying about the commentators seem to have a massive hard on for United, but they are playing well, and it is good to see like the little triangles and the stuff like that. And it's good to see them playing like uh, hang on,
Yeah.
free flowing football again, because it has been
Yeah.
lacking at Man United. But yeah, no, you're spot on. To be fair, you've got to give them the flowers, haven't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sweet. Next one, we've got Villa 1, Brighton nil. Just before we jump into this actual game, obviously the FA Cup has just been great game between Newcastle and Villa. If you manage to see any of that during the FA Cup, Grace, as you know, I do check the news and stuff that comes through as we're recording. It's just been announced that Premier League referee has been sidelined, Chris Kavanagh, after the massive mistake that was made during the Villa Newcastle game.
Christopher Kavanagh.
Interesting. Never been a big fan of Christopher Kavanagh. No disrespect to him, just not, just don't like his vibe as a referee. And I think Edwards just mentioned the meme there from what was it, an
I
MK
think it was an
Dons
MK
game where
Dons
they
game. Christopher
are
Kavanagh.
Christopher Kavanagh. Yeah, don't like him necessarily. Do you want to know something? This is terrible from me. I haven't seen it.
Okay.
Controversial issue. I don't know how I've missed it, but I have, and I'm sure. I'm sure. Well, they've got to be right because referees don't come out and don't get sidelined very often for being shit. So, this one's got to be a horrific one. I don't know. Was it in the highlights? I don't think it was in the highlights.
Well, I watched the game, so I've not seen the highlights. I would imagine it should be in there because it was quite a big talking point. Um, but yeah, like I've not seen the highlights. I saw it in action. So, but it just says that he's not been appointed at a Premier League game at the weekend due to the series of errors during the Aston Villa Newcastle FA Cup tie last Saturday. Look, I know we all say about VAR and stuff, but these are the reasons why VAR was brought in to stop stuff like this, right?
Yeah, I sorry, just to add, I didn't realise it was in the FA Cup. I'm all over the place at the moment because the Winter Olympics is on, so I'm just like sport. So I'm just watching a lot of. I've got curling in my head, and I've got bobsleigh, and I've got skeleton, and it's just very exciting. Um, sort of like molding into one. So okay, that makes sense that it was in the FA Cup game because I didn't actually catch the FA Cup game. I thought it was in the Villa Brighton game. So that's interesting. I'll have to have a look at that. But yeah, you're 100% right. That's the reason we have VAR. And I think we had an FA Cup game at the weekend where there was no VAR. There was a point where we wanted it because we're used to it, but the game flows so much better. There's no doubt. Um, if it's used, it needs to be used right. Let's be honest.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. We won't dwell on it too much because we are ready to talk about the Premier League. But Villa 1, Brighton nil. Edward, talk to me about this because I've not really got too much to say on it, to be fair. Both teams had the chances. Martin has had a great
Yeah,
game, other than that.
yeah. I think it's typical Villa, isn't it? Really, I actually haven't watched a great deal of Brighton this year. I've got a couple of friends who are Villa fans, so I tend to keep tabs of what they're doing. I think it's typical Villa. You know, they're pulling something out of nothing, and I think that we'd all agree right now that's sort of where they're at with the aspirations they've got, how well they're doing at the moment. What are they third at the moment? 50 points. Yeah, third, 50 points. That was a good guess. Um, I think it's one of those games where it's an own goal. You know, what was it? Hinchelwood? Was Hinchelwood the own goal about 4 minutes before the game was done? Bar that, it seemed pretty boring. It seemed pretty boring. So it's a testament to Villa, even if it is an own goal, to walk away with 3 points because I think Brighton will probably feel like they've been really hard done by, especially considering they're sort of hovering on the parapet of relegation. They're not safe. They're not far off, but they're not safe. So I think see that as a real disappointment. Villa will go, how high can we shoot now? You know, what's the ceiling for this Villa team? I think that's the bit we're all trying to work out. So I know, Grace, you've watched Villa a lot, haven't you? And you've been, very impressed.
Yeah, I have. I mean, I've watched. They're a team I enjoy watching. They're a team I really enjoy watching. They have had a few players out. I think some not so regular players coming in playing starting 11 football, and they've done all right. You know, they're not at the quality uh, that we used to see. You know, I think Villa potentially 3 months ago would have battered Brighton on Tuesday night. But they got the job done, and that's all you can ask. I mean, it's I feel a bit bad that the own goal wasn't, given to Tyrone Mings because I think it's nice when Mings scores. I've got a bit of a soft spot for Mings, especially with his injury issues. But 1-0, job done. Tuesday night, move on.
Yeah.
That's my view of that game. I think it's massive 3 points for Villa just for getting the job done, and I think it puts Brighton's woes continue. Matty, you tell me.
Sorry, mate, I lost you there for a second. There's something else I wanted to bring up as well, but it's confused me. No, one question I did want to ask you, sorry, Grace, was Aston Villa, yeah, sat on 50 points. They are 5 points ahead of United and 3 points behind Man City. But I've got a feeling that Man United are going to close the gap more than Aston Villa are going to gain. Is that am I wrong in saying that?
I think the momentum's with United, and I think it would seem harsh because Villa have had a really good season, and I think they deserve their flowers. They deserve something at the end of this season. But any sort of European football is another year in Europe for them, and another opportunity to build again and get big names in. You know, they're attracting better players, and I think it's a tough one, isn't it? Because football's not fair sometimes. United have been shite quite a lot of the season. I think United fans would say that they've not been good the majority of the season, and all of a sudden string together some wins. And Villa have a tough time with injuries, and they have a tough time potentially, getting 3 points when they need to as the sort of season comes to a close. You don't know. That's another interesting one. This is the beauty of the Premier League this season is there's so many interesting spots. You don't know where everybody's going to be, and that's another one that's going to be an interesting one. I don't think it will be the priority for a lot of fans because they'll be watching the title race and they'll be watching the relegation battle. But it will be interesting to see how that finishes, you know. And I'll feel a bit sorry for Villa if they don't win that race because I think they've been more consistent this season. But United are spirited. United, the momentum's with them, and I think everybody feels pretty good at United at the moment, and that is the better place to be.
Yeah, I want to. I know we do these games in game order as have happened during the week. I think I missed something, and I don't think you picked up on it, or if you have, you haven't told me. I've completely forgot to make notes about the Sunderland Liverpool game. I just forgot that this game even happened. Have you? Please tell me you've got something on
But
this.
I mean, I've made notes on that. Yeah,
Have you?
I've made notes on that.
Of course you have. Did you not even notice that I've completely missed it off the running order?
Can I just
Like,
say, like, as a PSA, just out there, Sky might come for me on this one. We wouldn't forget if we could watch the football at 3 o'clock, is all I'm going to say. We would, if we had the ability to watch all these games and sort of take notes when they are actually on. I know it was a Wednesday, wasn't it, night, but you know,
I would.
I had the freedom. Maybe we
I'm
wouldn't
saying
forget.
very quiet who is on Sky fairly regularly.
Yeah, I'd stay out of this one. I would. I would fully back you, Edward. But to be fair, this was a late kickoff, so this one was just completely on me.
Yeah.
But we'll jump there, and I'm going to give the floor to Grace because I've literally got nothing on this game. I don't know if that maybe tells us about the game, but yeah, I completely forgot about it. Sunderland 0, Liverpool 1.
Well, actually, I'm going to pull it back because I think we've missed another game.
Go on.
We're jumping.
Man City, Fulham.
Oh no, sorry, no, I've got that down. But I was going to just jump ahead to Sunderland Liverpool because I've not got too much to say on it anyway. But I was just going to slot it in now while it's in our heads, and we'll get. To be honest, it was 1-0. It was well, I say a Van Dijk goal. It wasn't. I think it was more of an own goal because I don't think it was ever going in. But yeah, go on, just rattle through this one for me.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was. I think it has been credited to Van Dijk because it was on target. It was an own goal, but his original
I
shot was
agree,
on
yeah.
target from a corner. Sunderland home record's gone, which is sad to see because I think they've held on to that for a long time. I expected this one didn't go as I expected. I expected Sunderland to really cause Liverpool a problem, and I don't think. I think a lot of us, if we had bets on who was going to disrupt that Sunderland home record, I don't think anybody would have said Liverpool at the moment. But Liverpool played really well. They played really well, and a little sneak preview. My player of the week is going to come from this game.
I forgot we do that.
Friday night fixture.
Yeah, not that much happened. Liverpool were just the better side. Sunderland just,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know what happened. Liverpool were just the better side, and to be honest with you, deserved the win.
Yeah. I think if I could just add on to what Grace said there, I think we're starting to sort of see. Again, I don't want to sound too harsh to Sunderland because I think it's great and I'm pleased they're in the league, but I think we're starting to see the Sunderland we sort of expected to see when, I think, I mean, they pumped on the opening day of the season and they were by far the better team. I'm not going to sit here and say West Ham are a better team, but I think we're starting to see just 3 losses in the last four. That home record that they were holding on to so dearly, the Stadium of Light is a fortress. So I think they've stayed up and stayed well clear because of that. What you don't want is the away form creeping into the home form. I know that sounds stupid, but you don't want the negativity for them to start to build because actually from a squad depth and a squad value perspective, if we were again just looking at it on, they're not the strongest team in the world. And they're sort of relying on a lot of players overperforming to where they are. So I hope, I hope they don't ever slip down. I hope they comfortably stay in the league, which they will. But I'm sort of thinking next year onwards. I think it's going to be a real recruitment based summer for them to sort of do a Brighton, do a Brentford, do a Leeds, try and hold on as long as you can and then build on that.
So they've got Sunderland. Sunderland have got Fulham at home. In next, hopefully they can, get
Yeah,
back on the horse if you
absolutely.
like. That's a good fixture for
Yeah,
them to get back on the horse. So I don't want to see Sunderland lag in towards the end of the season. I think they deserve to have a top half
yeah.
finish. And why not push for Europe? I haven't seen the table, and you guys are far more aware of what's going on in the
Agreed.
table. I haven't looked at that myself today. But I think why not? That home advantage is massive, and I don't think they should let Liverpool visiting. Yeah, it's been a great season.
Yeah, I think just what you said then, Grace, I've just had a look at the table. I'm looking at it live right now. Sunderland 36 points in 11th. I mean, the gap to 6th, which is Liverpool right now, is 42, so it's 6 points. The way this season's been going, I wouldn't have them penciled in personally for any type of European football, but you can imagine they'd be close. 2 wins on the bounce, you'd hope, but I mean, their form's not leaving a lot to desire to make you think that's going to happen. So I think they're going to have to sort of dig deep, ninth or 10th.
Yeah, I just found my notes that I made for Sunderland Liverpool, and everything is what you guys just said. So what a coincidence that is. Absolutely everything, exactly the same as what you two have just said. So there's no point in me getting involved there. Is like, well, let's get us back on track, shall we? Man City 3, Fulham 0. Another pretty routine win for City. Haaland, it's his first open play goal in 8 games, which actually surprised me quite a lot. Uh, Go on, Edward, take us away with this one.
Yeah, I think just exactly what you said. I mean, that stat about Haaland is really shocking because, as a man who enjoys fantasy football, I've been reliant on him for points for a lot of years, so you actually sort of don't think about that too much. I think it's typical City. Fulham are no pushover. They're not having the best year in the world. I don't think they're an easy team to beat. They're not from a West Ham perspective. So, but I think we're seeing routine City now where that experience members of the squad who have been around the block a few times when it comes to winning a title almost start to get their heels in, and you start to, I'm more from a game perspective. That was a must win for City. The Arsenal result, which we'll get to, has obviously made that 3 points even more important. I don't think we really see City ever get out of sort of fourth gear. They had to work hard against Fulham, but I'm not saying that they were, maxed out in sixth gear. It's almost like this time of year, especially against teams like Fulham, they never really get out of the groove. It's 3-0. It's a clean sheet for, one of the better defenses in the league. So I think from a Fulham perspective, you wouldn't have wanted you watch the game, you think Man City didn't really have to try hard to break them down. But I suppose you would look at that and say, hang about, it's Man City. We're not going to take too much from that. I think all the goals, what was it, Semenyo, Haaland and O'Reilly, wasn't it? I think the 3 goals, great for O'Reilly to be on the score sheet. I mean, you want players like, I mean, again, I could talk for days about how good Semenyo is. He's one of those unhateable footballers, but O'Reilly, it's good. That's the type of players you want to hit. He's a robot. He's in a permanent purple patch. But I think from that game in the perspective, for me, it's a Foden Semenyo type thing. Just how much both of them stretch that game that just pushes it out of Fulham's reach. Which I think, when you're watching football like we like to watch football from a tactical perspective, I think Man City, that game just got it spot on. So.
Yeah, this is similar to what Grace was saying earlier. You look at the fixtures and you kind of just say, right, well, we've kind of lost that game really. And I think
Yeah.
Fulham um, can't be too disheartened by it because it is Man City. Look, they're starting to, like you said, Edward, they're starting to hit that point of the season now where they're just going on a charge. And I think we'd mentioned early on, Grace, about Man City is the only team I can see going on that like 10 game unbeaten run, or even more than that, to be fair. But one question I did want to ask is Donnarumma going under the radar a little bit?
What did
No,
you
no, no.
say?
I was actually going to invite you because I know that we've spoke a lot about, him, when he signed and obviously you doing what you do, it comes up in conversation. So I was actually going to let you take the floor.
I think he has, and I think it's because he's gone under the radar because he's still pulling out amazing saves, but the players in front of him haven't complimented him for the majority of the season. I think we're all starting to notice it now because he's not sort of betrayed by his centre backs in front of him anymore. I think Gay slotted in really nicely. He's somebody that I highlighted, and it just feels like final. I don't know, the final. He is the final line of defence, but for a long time, it felt like he was the last line of defence and the first. So if Donnarumma couldn't get it, then they had no hope. But I feel like Donnarumma is just such a player, so talented, and he should be at a club like Man City. That is a transfer that makes sense to me. And yeah, I just think the two centre backs in front of him now complement him, and I think we can see Donnarumma at his best because he's got those centre backs in front of him that he can take charge of, that he can sort of rely on a little bit. And we're seeing it, not to bring West Ham back into it again, but we're seeing it at West Ham where we had a keeper that arguably got a lot of shit at the beginning of the season. But should we have turned our attention to the defensive line in front of him? Probably, because now that we have some sort of order in that defensive line, all of a sudden he's getting clean sheets and he's playing really well and is now starting at 11. So I think the centre backs in front of you matter massively. And I think now Donnarumma can get that credit because of the players that are in front of him, ironically.
Yeah, I think to me the biggest surprise is how on earth is that bloke 26 years old? That is absolutely blown my mind. His paper round must have been uphill,
Yeah.
square wheels, because it absolutely blew my head when I saw that he was 26. But
Yeah.
we spoke before, Grace, haven't we? Like your defenders have a lot more confidence when you know you've got a solid keeper behind you. But like you just said, this kind of has the counter effect where he has a lot more confidence because of the players in front of him. And like you said, He's just slotted in really well. He looks fantastic for City. They made some great signings overall with Semenyo as well, who just fits in like a glove in that Man City. So I think there was a lot of question marks over if he would become a squad player. And he's gone straight into the starting 11 and just ran the show. So, but yeah, go on, Ed. What was you going to say about Donnarumma?
I was just going to say similar to what you said. I think it doesn't, it helps that he's the same height as a two-bed semi-detached. The bloke is built to be a big-time keeper. It's nice to see him playing like the keeper we all think he could be. Um, I'm a big Mark Gay fan. I always have been. I was singing the Mark Gay songs at the Euros. Grace will know that just as well as I do. I think that team is so well balanced, and I think. Maybe there was a bit of fatigue coming into the last few seasons with City that they have to be the best. Pep will only stick around if they're the best. A lot of question marks, longevity, who's going to stick around. And I think it took them a while this season to get comfortable with where they were at, who does what. But I think when you have O'Reilly playing like he's playing, you have Gay playing like he's playing. I mean, if you told me 3 years ago that Nunes would be playing right back for Man City, I would have said, "What are you smoking and where did you get it from?" Because none of us would have thought that's the case. So I think it would have taken a bit of time for City fans, for City, the squad to get used to it. But now that they all know exactly what they're doing, and that squad, as we know under Pep, is real, the sky's the limit. Arsenal are going to be watching over their shoulders, and I think, like Grace said, that starts from the man in goal, and just sort of moves through the rest of the squad. And when you have a team playing like they're playing, Arsenal need to look over their shoulder now because hang on, we're only what, 3 points clear, 4 points clear? I can't actually remember what it is. What is it?
Oh,
4 points. So there's less than 2 games in it now. And I think if you've got
And they've still got to play each other.
and they've still got to play each other, which is going to be Donnarumma playing the way he playing is a testament for City taking a chance on him. We obviously saw it at Italy, him playing for Italy and in the Italian league, in the Champions League, but not much. So it's nice to see a transfer like that work out, where both sides are benefiting. Obviously, he's very comfortable. Grace and I saw it with, like Grace said, with Hermansen at the start of the year. The guy looked lost in the games he played, and we were like, hang on a second, what is going on here? Because I watched him at Leicester and they did go down, but I and we got the opposite of that. And then, like Grace said, once we addressed the problems in front of him, you then start to see a much more polished version of a man who's screaming for the ball in the box because it's his. He's got the confidence to come out and punch it. We saw that against Man United. And I think the exact same templates with Donnarumma. He's got full confidence in Diaz and Gay in front of him. So just let me do what I need to do, and the clean sheets will follow. And in this case, Fulham are no pushover, like I said. So a clean clean sheet, really. With their team as well, Fulham's team, is not a bad team, is it really?
Yeah, we're going to rattle through the next three games pretty quickly. Just really quickly from you two, one word answer. If you're building your team, Donnarumma or David Raya? Grace?
Donnarumma, and it's not even a competition.
Ed?
Yeah, Donnarumma for me as well. Donnarumma for me as well.
Fair enough. Forest nil, Wolves nil. This was going to be one of these games where it was kind of just going to gloss over it really because it not much happened. Both teams had their chances. That 6-on-1. Did you see this? Unbelievable. I think
Yeah,
even I think Wolves had
it
a
was ridiculous.
yeah. I mean, we were talking about misses of the season earlier on, but I think Wolves had a 4-on-1 as well towards the end of the game. But yeah, I was kind of going to gloss over this until I think very early hours. Mad Marinakis decided to go on his usual mad rampage, and Sean Dyche was sacked. Grace, go on, talk me through this. Right decision or wrong decision?
Um, from the outside looking in, you might feel differently from the inside. From the outside looking in, I think it's a silly decision. I think if you want any sort of manager going into a relegation battle, it's someone like Sean Dyche, if I'm honest. And it blows my mind a bit because if you look at Sean Dyche's record, and I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I think he won like 45% of his games or something.
Mhm.
I This is just a mad moment. I think this is just a mad moment, and I think this is showing Marinakis as really quite emotionally driven. And I think that's tough for Forest fans. They've got Vitor Pereira, isn't it? Um, who knows how he's? I mean, he's expected to come in and win. That's the situation they're in. He's expected to come in and immediately win. That is ridiculously hard. And I think I cannot. You should be bringing in someone like Deitch this time of the season. You shouldn't be letting him go. From my perspective, um, madness. And I think Mad Marinakis is a great way of opening this conversation because it just feels so emotionally driven.
I mean, I've spoken quite heavily on my thoughts with Marinakis and Forest, and I know I think the Forest fans maybe split. Something like they love the passion from him, something that he gets too involved. I could go an absolute rant about him because I can't stand the bloke. Ever since the whole Morgan Gibbs White stuff with Tottenham and all that, I know it sounds very salty from a Tottenham point of view, but even and Grace, you'll probably back me up on this. I spoke about him coming onto the pitch and stuff like that before, completely unnecessary from the owner. I'm not going to get into it, but yeah, you're right. Sean Dyche is someone that you would want in this situation, and the only credit I will give him is he sacked him and he replaced him pretty much straight away. He knew what he wanted, which is I think we're all three of us are sat here with pretty poor owners of our clubs. And we wish we had an owner that was maybe that decisive, like maybe from a Tottenham point of view. Correct me if I'm wrong from a West Ham,
Well,
but
to be from a West Ham perspective, we don't sack anybody until we've got the next one lined up, and we've got the dildo brother. So do you know what I mean? Like it's it's one of I see where you're coming from, but we see that from. I'm not going to say any other words about the West Ham board, but we see that from our owner as well. So take that as you need to, but we see that too.
no, but this is what I was kind of saying. At least he knew what he knows what he wants. Do you know what I mean? He knew that he wanted to change. He changed it, and he knew the appointment he wanted to go for. We hadn't had this whole merry-go-round like Tottenham have. Do we bring in a 74-year-old ex-manager, or do you know what I mean? He's not. He knows what he wants. But again, I don't think this is the right decision. But we'll have to wait and see. Edward, go on, give us your thoughts quickly on this one.
Yeah, I think shout out to the city of Wolverhampton. Thank you for so much for doing us a massive favor because Grace and I needed a draw real bad, like really bad. That's a great result from a West Ham perspective. I think from a Forest perspective, yeah, I just while you guys were talking was just looking at the stats just to sort of refresh my memory of how bad it was. And Forest, that was nothing shy of domination. I actually don't know how they didn't get something out of that. Some voodoo magic. I don't know what it was, but the only thing that Wolves did better was have less offsides called for the rest of the game. That was the only thing in all the stats and all the metrics that we get. I think it's a tough game. Wolves are down. We know they're down. I think they're playing like a team who are just damage limitation. You don't want to be the worst team ever, do you? So they've got Derby's record to beat. Wait, or was that? I can't remember. Did Southampton eclipse that last year? That's poor for me. I can't
I
remember.
think it's still
Yeah,
Derby.
it's still Derby, isn't it? Just so I'm getting my facts right. But yeah, from a Forest perspective, like we've said, a lot of times tonight, that's missed points, especially big time slip up from them because West Ham are now only 3 points behind. There's a game in hand, and they've got to go to Anfield. At the weekend, we've got Bournemouth at home. So on paper, you'd assume that it's looking in favour of West Ham at the weekend. We could be sat here next week saying totally different, but a real snooze fest for the neutral, I think.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I've not really got too much more to say on that. We'll jump into the Palace 2, Burnley 3. I don't want to talk about this purely because I put on a six-team ACCA at the weekend, and I had Palace to win. They got 2-0 up very early on, and then all of a sudden, the blink of an eye, the £197 had just disappeared out of my hands. Grace, talk me through this because you called this, didn't you? You said how good Strand Larsen looked, and he bagged two goals pretty early on for Palace.
He did, and he looks like a proper striker with the right what's the word service. Yeah, I've always I've always said that. Um, and I think he's gone to Palace, and he is a really decent centre forward. Do I think he is worth the money that they spent on him? It might be me being cheap. I don't think he's worth that amount. But he probably is in today's world of football madness money. Um, I mean that first finish was lovely. I don't know whether you've seen it. Really, really nice. Could only dream of your striker finishing that. Really nice. Second one was with his head. They look comfortable, but then sadly his defence let him down. And Burnley, I mean, this was a game of really nice finishes actually. Hannibal, lovely finish. Anthony, another lovely finish. And then I think it was a Lerma own goal, which felt unlucky towards the end of the first half. And I think we were all looking forward to a really good second half that turned out to have no more goals in it. Um, but yeah, I mean, Palace. That, that's that's a nasty one. You know, your front players doing what they need to do, and then your defense just letting them down. And I think Palace are fine. Palace are going to be fine. There's teams below them, but this you can't be letting that slip to Burnley. No disrespect to Burnley, but being 2-0 up and losing 3-2 within the matter of probably 25 minutes, that's just, yeah, that's not a good place to be, especially at home. But you've got to give credit where credit's due to Burnley. They got themselves 3 points. I think it's far too late for them to be considering staying up, but it was a decent 3 points and some really nice finishing from Burnley.
Yeah, Edward, there's a question mark over the players. Have they stopped playing for Glasner now that he's obviously confirmed that he's leaving in the summer? Is there a question mark over that for you?
Yeah, I think the question mark's been rubbed out, the piece of paper ripped and torn and thrown away. I think it must be hard. The dressing room, they love him. Palace fans love him. We all, as neutrals to Palace, would probably say we like him well. So to know you're trying to play for a man who doesn't really want to be there, the whole Mateta thing, I think, where Palace were, I think that has a tendency to stunt any growth. The guy who they were so reliant on for goals, for especially last season, turnaround, failed medical, Instagram posts, that starts to derail a team. And my worry for Palace is great team. They're London rival, but I'm not going to sit here and say I think their team's bad. I think uh, he got it right, but I think now he's out the door. Who comes in next? I don't think they're going to play the sort of 3-4-2-1. I think I'm right in saying that sort of formation that Glasner's sort of played the whole time he's been there. I think there's the question mark moves from whether they've stopped playing for him over to Palace's future. What does next season look like? Are they going to be able to hold on to certain players? I know Munoz, players like him, he's so, important to their success. All it takes is for clubs like Tottenham, Arsenal, City. Yeah, I'll take a punt on him. he's gone. Arsenal, I think, like Gray said, is a good bit of business, but Wharton, I know there's a couple of Real Madrid links here and there. If you're not playing for Glasner anymore, uh, does he start thinking, well, where does my future lie? And then, where does that stop for Palace? That's my worry for them. I think great team, great fans, they've got all the metrics to be a successful team, but it's just how long they can keep it together. And I think Glasner was doing a really good job of that.
Yeah, Grace, you'll back me up on this one. I think I spoke quite sort of not harshly about Palace, but I do feel very sorry for them and what they've gone through. Like I said before, this should be a year after the FA Cup win
Yeah.
where they just had the time of their life this season, regardless what happened. But I don't think they expected it to be this bad, to be honest with you. A bit of neglect from the board, I think, which we'll know firsthand what that feels like.
Yeah.
Grace, is there an argument that Thomas Frank goes to Palace?
Yeah, I mean it makes sense, doesn't it? It's one of those ones that actually is that a bad move from either side? I think that gives Frank an opportunity to not have that level of expectation that he would have at Spurs. It also helps us to understand whether he did hold Brentford back or not. Um, who knows? I think from a Palace perspective, he's a decent manager, and why not? Why not? I think that would be a nice pairing. I still quite like Thomas Frank. It could be his charm as a person that draws me into him rather than his tactical ability. But yeah, I think that's quite a nice match, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, look, Thomas Frank, I do like him as a bloke. If this thing, like with the whole him being an Arsenal fan and him apparently bringing up a lot of Arsenal stuff in the Tottenham team talks and all that, and how good Arsenal are to the Tottenham players, if that comes out and it is true and it's confirmed by a source, then that will probably piss me off quite a lot. But look, you've Grace, you're right there when I talk quite a lot about Thomas Frank and was he holding them back. I think that would be a very good example at Palace if he goes there and they're fighting for relegation because they shouldn't be near relegation. They're a good enough team. Okay, they're going to lose players, like you said, Edward. But I'd still expect them to be at least mid-table. But I mean, I'm pretty good on that game. Grace, you got any more comments?
No, I don't think so. I think we can move on to a big one.
A big one. Brentford won, Arsenal won. We all love to see Arsenal drop points, don't we? Oh, there's a title race on our hands, Edward. Talk to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just gonna, I said before we kick this off, I had my prop. I've conveniently gonna drink from my bottle when we talk about Arsenal. That's a good bottle of water. Um, look, I think from an Arsenal perspective, that game, Grace and I saw it, and both of us immediately said, "Yep, that's just blown the whole thing wide open." Because now all of a sudden, Arsenal have gone from having to look, not really look over their shoulder and go, "We're far better than City." We know it will be close because City will hit that sixth gear, last 15 games of the season. But we're a good enough team now to not have to worry. Now I think. Oh, hang on a second. I think there's a bit of doubt starting to creep in. I think from a Brent perspective, that's the type of result that I think we've got used to seeing from Brentford. You're sort of 1-0 down, 10 minutes later, it's back to 1-1. And I think Brentford did a really good job of just staying settled, managing that wave of Arsenal dominance that we saw early on, staying settled and going, right, we're still in this. 1-0 means nothing. But from an Arsenal perspective, that is that is drop points where no one's going to sit here and say, it's fine. We dropped points against Brentford, titles won anyway. It's not anymore. And I've said to Grace right from the start of the season, and correct me if I'm wrong, Grace, that I just don't think they've got it. I don't think we've seen with City that they just go get automatic this time of year. I'm not going to sit and doubt the quality they've got in that starting 11. That is a league winning squad. We'd all be lying if we said we didn't think that. But I just think the lack of experience may cause this to be closer. In my heart, I still think they're going to win it. I do think, but I think it's going to be way more uncomfortable than they.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the stats here, I mean, I'm not a fan of XG at all. I don't really quite get it. But Brentford 1.34 XG to Arsenal 0.6, which is quite damning, really. And you don't like. I was quite shocked when I saw that stat. There was two questions I wanted to ask you, Grace. There was big chances for both teams to win it during that game, and I also wanted to ask. We spoke about this before. The mentality. Obviously, they've played after Man City's closed the gap, and we've obviously we mentioned this before. Does it have an impact when they play after Man City?
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned it last time. The psychology of football is massive. It's massive, and this is a prime example of it. It's pressure. Pressure builds diamonds. Is this Arsenal side going to be a diamond? I'm not sure because look, they go 1-0 up. It's not like they trailed. They went 1-0 up. They have to kill them off. They have to go on, dominate. They have to win that game. You cannot find yourself 1-0 up and then allow Brentford back. I mean, I don't even know how Thiago didn't score. I don't even know. He had so many opportunities. I don't know how he didn't score. You're right. Both teams had chances to win that game, but we should be looking at that from where Arsenal are in the league. And granted, Brentford are a tough team to beat at the moment. But from where Arsenal are in the league, we should be sitting here going, oh, that's lost opportunities from an Arsenal perspective. They had the opportunities to win it. Brentford had just as many, if not better, opportunities. This
Yeah.
could have been 3 points dropped for Arsenal. And at the end, I think they were fortunate for it to. It's tough, isn't it? I think we all support our London clubs. There is obviously a part of our hearts that more you, Matty, because you're a Tottenham fan, that don't want Arsenal to win the league. We would prefer a City win just purely because of the teams we support. But from a neutral perspective, the psychology of football, man. I mean, City they're just getting to that point now. That 3-0 routine win for City, that is that is something else. And before City have done this before, and you can see they've done it before. Arsenal are jittery. Arsenal are really jittery, and I'm not just saying this because Rice is ex West Ham, but I think he is the only player at the moment that I think has the potential to be in a side that go on and win the league. Because the rest of them look flappy. The rest of them look really flappy at times. I mean, we've had the conversation, Matty. You and I have had the conversation about Erdegaard and where he lies in this squad and his importance. He's the club captain, but I think Erdegaard could he did concede. Um, is Erdegaard not a problem? He's not a problem, but do you think they're trying to make Erdegaard a big part of a title winning side rather than Erdegaard deserving a sort of important part of that title winning side?
Well, I'm not sure if I read this properly. I'm sure there was talking about him though, and him maybe moving away in the summer, and then them slapping the armband on Declan Rice. So I think, look, if that is kind of the route that you want to go down, make your decision. Don't try and force him into a squad if you don't want him there.
Yeah.
Declan Rice looks like the best player on the pitch, and he looks knackered half the time. So you know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's a tough one, and I think a lot of this does come down.
Sorry, just to interrupt. This is something that I am beyond praying for. I'm sorry, I just can't help but my West get involved in this. But could you argue that Rice could potentially be looking for a move away? Because this is what, 3 or 4 times he's tried to win the league now and he's not done it. Is he wasting his career? Could he go on and do better things? Could the likes of the big European names? I mean, all I'm saying is Rodri isn't looking so great now. Rodri is showing his age. He's showing the after effects of an injury. Could City go after Rice? Could Rice be tempted away from Arsenal? Is that me being optimistic? Probably. But all I'm saying is that Rice deserves a Premier League title and he has not had it at Arsenal.
Are we going there? Are we going there with that question?
Go on.
Really? Okay. No, I mean, I think Declan Rice is going to be at Arsenal for years to come, personally. But I mean, look, it's a good shout.
Oh,
Go on, Edward. Give us your thoughts on it.
Whoa, I'd love nothing more than to not see him in an Arsenal kit. He was like our West Ham brother, and it pains me still to see him in that red kit. But I do agree with you, mate. I think Grace is going to see it through claret tinted glass, like we will. But I think the scope for Arsenal is there. I think what frustrates me for him from a I obviously want him to do well. I think what frustrates me for him is when you look at City go 1-0 up in the Fulham game, we all go, that's it, game over. It's automatic. They'll win 3 or 4-0. Arsenal went 1-0 up in that game, and I think possession wise, and there were far more chances in the final sort of passes into the final third. We all think, right, are they going to do it? Even think they're going to do it, but we question it. City, we don't question it. We go straight to, yeah, I think it's going to be automatic. And for Rice, bring Saka into the equation. Well, we can always get onto that at another time. How good is he? Does his future lie with Arsenal? But uh, it must be frustrating for Rice to go, I've committed a big move. I've moved all my family to this part of London. I'm not seeing the results I was promised. Or he's very obviously trying to buy into. Well, Grace and I obviously know that Rice plays with his heart on his sleeve 100% of the time. 100%. He doesn't leave a drop of effort anywhere on that pitch. And I think it's frustrating because you look at their team and I've got their team in front of me and the stats from the game. Is that team better than City's team? I just don't think it is. So I think Rice will stay? Yeah. Do I think it's going to be as a fruitful career as he had hoped? I think the jury's still out on that one. There's a lot. They've still got a lot of convincing to do for me, Arsenal. I think before we go, yeah, that's a real title winning team. No questions asked.
Yeah, no, brilliant. We're going to wrap up the pod in a minute. I just want to touch on Brentford real quick because you've got to give them their flowers. It was a great point in the end, and it's good to see a goal being scored from a long throw-in because they're back now. So it is good to
Yeah.
see, and
It was a
do you
long
know what? It's
throw.
great. It's great to see it against Arsenal because they use all these tactics against other teams. And am I right in thinking Arteta was complaining about this as well after the game?
Probably. Yeah, probably. He was probably complaining that water's wet. Do you know what I mean? That water's wet. The sun is warm. I just, it gets so boring, doesn't it? Watching him complain. Just get on with it. You conceded a long throw and reset and try and win the game. Stop hiding behind all this rubbish. It is rubbish, isn't it? I'm starting to get frustrated already because you can imagine how many times Grace and I bang on about how annoying we find it. But I think you're spot on. It's lovely to see them undone by something that they've been championing the last 3 years, where, we invented the set, we invent, man marking's a thing of the past. It's all zonal, and it just gets so boring. Just lump the ball in. Good for Brentford. I think they're our bogey team. I always think Brentford are West Ham's bogey team in that sense. We always seem to struggle against them. I think nice to see a team like we said earlier, who have come up, stayed up, recruited well, bought good players. I mean, Dango Watara. We all would have said, why the hell have you left Bournemouth for Brentford? We knew it was a playing time issue, but how stupid. He's playing well. He's a integral part of that team. I think it's nice to see Keane Lewis Potter as well, starting to come into stride a bit because West Ham were keeping tabs on him. So Grayson, I sort of looked at that as a great move. He sort of dropped off a cliff a little bit, and we were like, oh, thank God we didn't. Now I probably would say actually he's playing well, and good for Brentford that they've got a good team as well. I think that back line is good. I like them a lot.
Yeah, I like Keane Potter. I watched him a lot when he played for Hull. But yeah, great player.
Oh, of course, yeah, good point, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Look, that's pretty much another weekend done. Grace, do you want to talk to me about your game of the week?
My game of the week. Well, I've been umming and ahhing with this one. Can't go West Ham United because that is just
Good,
two claret tinted
good,
glasses. Um,
good.
I think I am going to go for Crystal Palace Burnley, I think it's too big of a turnaround in a half for me to ignore. And I think with it being Burnley who turned it around, I can't ignore it. I have to give them the credit.
Edward, have you got one? Are you jumping in on this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll jump in. I think I've been very complimentary of Man City. I think game of the week, I'll give it to the Man City team because I think Fulham is a potential banana skin in a time where they really need to sort of lock in and 3 points are so important. Um, Yeah, I think I was torn between sort of giving it to City. I know Leeds' result at Chelsea was good as well, so I'd sort of float between those two. I know that's a bit sitting on the fence, but I think both of those games had a good impact for the team that did better. Leeds on the occasion with Chelsea. City, I think, I've always been in awe of how they play, and I think that shone through in that game. So yeah, one of those two.
No, fair enough. Mine was going to be Palace Burnley, but just because it ruined my acca, I'm not going to go there. I'll go for Man City. Go on quickly, Grace. Give us your start. Give us your start player.
Do you know what? He's not somebody who was involved in the goals necessarily. He was involved, if you really look at it, but he didn't stand out from a if you just looked at the scoreline. But I think Florian Wirtz was everything right about Liverpool against Sunderland. I thought he was brilliant. He was involved in everything. He was just that was a massive win for Liverpool. Massive win from a momentum shift. That was really good, and I think Wirtz was everything right with that. I really like how he sort of settled in now. He's starting to really cause problem. And I have to give credit where credit is due. And for me, my star of the week this week is Florian Wirtz.
Yeah, I'll chuck mine out there. Man Semenyo, goal and assist. He looks fantastic in the Man City shirt. I just love watching him play. Wish Tottenham had gone for it. By the way, we offered 50 grand extra on top of his wage, and he turned it down for us. By the way, but yeah, go on, Edward. Chuck as your star player.
I so totally agree with Semenyo. Yeah, definitely. I would have gone for Semenyo. I was just thinking about it and I thought, yeah, I think I'm not Semenyo. And I thought of a man who was in goal for Wolves, who faced everything in the world and somehow still kept the clean sheet. So I think I've landed on Jose Sarr for this week. From a West Ham perspective, he did Grace and I a humongous favour. I mean, he could have saved the world that night. I think he was. I don't know how they Forest didn't score. So yeah, I think I'm going to land on Jose Sarr for this week. Give him his flowers.
I like that because I think me and Grace do have a tendency to overlook keepers every now and then. So no, absolutely fair play. Edward, amazing debut. Give him a little round of applause.
Yes, no, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, mate, you
Hopefully,
are
what
welcome.
I was thinking, we were talking about Tottenham. I thought, there's got to be an episode in there somewhere where you get to speak about your own, as we'll speak about ours. It'll be a banger of an episode. I think we might have to do that one when I can have a beer or something,
A beer.
just to
We,
make sure.
we need a lot more than alcohol.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, no, it's been really good. Nice to sort of break down the games. You don't often do that in such a sort of compact format like this. So actually, yeah, it's been really, really good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, mate, you are welcome on any time. We will do that episode. Absolutely. We need about 10 beers and a lot of other stuff, and maybe about 5 hours
Absolutely.
of conversation.
Yeah, a round table with a mic each, so we're all in the flesh.
Yes, yes.
So we can really get emotive about how our football clubs are run. I know Grace and I would enjoy that massively.
Yeah, no, sweet. I'll look into it. Guys, this has been Beyond the Whistle. Thank you for sitting with us if you've made it this far. I think this has been our longest one, to be fair, but with these two on here, you know what I mean? They've got some great insight. Grace Wild Football, go check her out on Instagram, TikTok. I should know this by now, Grace, shouldn't I? She's been smashing it on Sky Sports. I'm going to check that I've just not frozen again because these two are looking at me very blankly. I've definitely frozen. Have I frozen?
No, we had
Yeah, we heard
everything.
everything. We heard everything.
Sweet. I feel like they didn't, but they just want me to leave now because my internet connection has been terrible today. Guys, yeah, this has been Beyond the Whistle. Hit subscribe, hit like, do all that notification stuff because I'm terrible at reminding you of that. Grace Wild on TikTok, Behind the Mic Media. Guys, I'm going because my internet connection is terrible. Bye bye, guys.
See you later.